Grooming is not a trivial concern. It is not something to be dismissed as superficial or unnecessary. It is a reflection of order, a manifestation of discipline, and a signal to the world that a man takes himself seriously. When a man neglects his grooming, he is not simply choosing to let his beard grow wild or his hair become unkempt. He is allowing disorder to seep into his life, and disorder spreads. It does not stay contained to one area. It moves outward, creeping into his posture, his speech, his mindset, and his very sense of self-respect. The way a man presents himself is the first thing people see, and that first impression holds power. A well-groomed man signals competence, stability, and authority before he even opens his mouth. A man who is careless with his appearance, who lets himself fall into sloppiness, communicates something else entirely. Carelessness, weakness, and a lack of control. And control is everything. A man who does not control his own face, his own hair, his own hygiene, is a man who lacks control over larger, more significant aspects of his life. A disciplined grooming routine is not about excess. It is not about vanity. It is about maintaining a standard. Hair should be cut with intention, not left to grow into an unmanageable mess. If a beard is worn, it must be kept in shape, trimmed properly, structured rather than neglected. A clean shave when chosen should be done with precision, not rushed through like an afterthought. These small actions matter. They accumulate over time, shaping how a man is perceived and, more importantly, how he perceives himself. The skin is a canvas that reflects the care a man has given to himself. Dry, rough, uncared for skin is not just a sign of age, it is a sign of neglect. A simple routine, washing the face with proper care, moisturizing, using sunscreen when necessary, is not a luxury, it is maintenance, the same way one maintains a house, a car, or any tool that must last. Ignoring this reality does not make it disappear, it only accelerates deterioration. Hygiene is not an optional task, but a fundamental necessity. Cleanliness, the smell of soap instead of sweat, the scent of subtle but deliberate cologne rather than the stale odor of laziness. These things define the difference between a man who is respected and one who is dismissed. A man's scent is one of the most primal signals he sends to the world. A clean man, one who smells of purpose rather than neglect, commands space differently. He is noticed, he is acknowledged, he is taken seriously. Nails, often overlooked, are another marker of discipline. Hands that are clean, nails that are trimmed, free of dirt, free of jagged edges. These are not small things, they are silent indicators of order, of a man who does not allow himself to slip into disorder. A handshake tells more than words ever could. A strong grip combined with clean, well-maintained hands is a sign of self-respect. And self-respect is always visible. Eyebrows, often ignored, should never be left to grow wild. The face is a focal point of human interaction, and disorder in the smallest details draws attention in the wrong way. A man who keeps his eyebrows in check, who ensures they are shaped rather than chaotic, subtly enhances his presence. It is not about overstyling, about making oneself artificial, but about refining what is naturally there, sharpening the lines rather than letting them blur into an unkempt mass. The mouth, the teeth, the breath, these are markers of whether a man values himself enough to maintain the most fundamental aspects of personal care. Teeth that are brushed, breath that is fresh, gums that are cared for. This is not a luxury, it is a baseline requirement. A man who allows his mouth to deteriorate is a man who has abandoned his own well-being, and people notice. They always notice. The choice of a haircut is not random. A man should know what suits him, what structure best complements his features, what length and style conveys strength rather than sloppiness. Walking into a barber without a plan, accepting whatever is given, is a passive act. A man should not be passive in his own appearance. He should have standards. He should have a plan, and he should execute that plan with precision. Even body hair, often dismissed as irrelevant, requires attention. It does not need to be removed entirely, but it must be maintained. Hair on the neck, the ears, the back, these are things that, when left unchecked, create a sense of disorder. A man who takes the time to refine these details is a man who understands that nothing should be left to chance. Clothing, while not strictly part of grooming, is deeply connected to it. A well-groomed man in wrinkled, ill-fitting clothes is a contradiction. Grooming extends beyond the skin. It dictates that a man should wear clothing that is clean, pressed, and well-fitted. The synergy between proper grooming and proper attire creates an image of control, of self-respect, of a man who is not at the mercy of entropy. Grooming is not about indulgence. It is not about appeasing others. It is about discipline, about maintaining order in the most personal, intimate way possible. It is a ritual that sets the tone for the day, a practice that reinforces structure, a habit that signifies to the world and to oneself that standards will not be lowered, that self-respect will not be abandoned, that a man will remain in command of his presence, regardless of age, regardless of circumstance, regardless of anything else that threatens to strip him of that control. A man's frame is not just his physical structure, it is his presence, his foundation, the architecture upon which everything else is built. Strength is not merely about lifting weights or building muscle, it is about maintaining the integrity of one's form, standing in a way that demands respect, walking with the purpose and control that signifies a man who has not been broken by time, by circumstance, by his own neglect. Posture is not simply an aesthetic detail, it is a statement, a declaration of how one carries himself in the world, how he chooses to engage with it rather than retreat. A slouched posture is not just a bad habit, it is a manifestation of weakness, of resignation, of a man allowing himself to collapse inward. The body reflects the mind, and when a man allows his shoulders to round forward, when he lets his back curve into a state of permanent defeat, it is not just his body that suffers. His presence diminishes, he looks smaller, weaker, less capable. People see it before they even hear him speak, and they react accordingly. A man who does not stand tall, does not command attention, does not inspire confidence, does not present himself as someone who takes responsibility for his own existence. Strength is not something that fades simply because of age. It is something that is abandoned. The body, if trained, if maintained, will continue to serve its purpose long past youth. Resistance training, whether through lifting weights, body weight exercises, or functional movement, is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Strength must be cultivated because without it, the body deteriorates into frailty. A man who neglects his physical strength invites weakness into every aspect of his life. Posture is not a passive element of appearance. It is an active engagement with the physical world. A man who stands with his shoulders back, chest open, head held high, exudes competence, control, and self-respect. He moves with certainty rather than hesitation. He walks into a room and is noticed not because he demands attention, but because his very presence commands it. A man who allows his body to collapse inward signals insecurity, doubt, a lack of engagement with the world around him. Strength and posture determine how a man moves, and movement is a language of its own. A slow, deliberate stride conveys confidence, control, a mastery over oneself. A hurried, shuffling gait suggests fear, uncertainty, and unwillingness to claim space. A man's walk tells the world whether he is in control of himself or whether he has surrendered. Every step is a choice, every movement a reflection of his internal state, and those who understand this carry themselves with a different kind of weight, a different kind of authority. The spine is the pillar upon which a man is built, and when it is weak, everything else follows. Poor posture leads to chronic pain, stiffness, and deterioration that accelerates the aging process. It is not just a matter of looking strong, it is a matter of being strong. A well-maintained body resists injury, withstands stress, and functions efficiently. A neglected frame deteriorates rapidly, inviting limitations that were never necessary in the first place. The connection between posture and confidence is undeniable. A man who stands upright speaks differently, thinks differently, engages with others differently. His voice projects better, his breath flows more efficiently, his entire physiology shifts to match the way he holds himself. A man who slouches, who curls inward, who allows himself to physically shrink, unconsciously signals submission. He diminishes himself before he even utters a word, and the world responds accordingly. The discipline of strength training is not about vanity, it is about responsibility. It is about ensuring that the body remains capable, that the frame of a man does not become a fragile shell of what it once was. It is about proving to oneself every single day that strength is a choice, that resilience is cultivated, that the body is not something to be surrendered to time, but something to be maintained with intention. A man's presence in a room is dictated first by his frame, the way he sits, the way he stands, the way he holds himself when listening, when speaking, when simply existing in a space. A man who slouches at a table, who folds into himself rather than taking up the space he is entitled to, loses respect before he even opens his mouth. But a man who sits upright, who owns his space, who demonstrates composure and physical control, shifts the dynamic of an interaction before it even begins. There is a difference between strength and mere size. A large man with poor posture and weak movement appears cumbersome, slow, uncoordinated. A man of even moderate stature who holds himself well, who carries strength in his frame, who moves with intention, appears formidable. The difference is not genetic, it is discipline. It is the willingness to train, to refine, to ensure that every movement, every stance, every detail of physicality reflects a man who does not yield to weakness. Strength and posture are the silent markers of a man who has not abandoned himself. They are not the product of youth, nor are they reserved for those with ideal genetics. They are cultivated, built over time, maintained with care. A man who understands this does not allow his body to betray him, does not permit the slow deterioration that creeps in through neglect, does not accept that aging must mean shrinking, bending, collapsing into something lesser. A man's frame is the vessel through which he moves through life, and if that vessel is weak, unstable, or poorly maintained, everything else suffers. The way a man carries himself is a daily testament to whether he has allowed time and entropy to defeat him, or whether he has stood his ground, upheld his standards, and refused to yield to the slow collapse that claims those who lack the discipline to resist it. Clothing is not just fabric draped over a body. It is a language, a signal, a declaration of where a man stands in the hierarchy of competence and self-respect. A man who has earned his place in the world does not dress like he is uncertain of himself, like he has no direction, like he is at the mercy of whatever is easiest or most comfortable. He understands that how he presents himself matters, that his attire is an extension of his discipline, and that neglecting his appearance is a reflection of a deeper disorder within. A man who respects himself does not dress carelessly. He does not throw on ill-fitting clothes, mismatched colors, or garments that make him look like a man who has not yet figured out who he is. There is a reason military officers, executives, and leaders of every kind wear structured clothing that fits their form, that exudes control rather than chaos. It is because the way a man dresses directly influences how others perceive him, and more importantly, how he perceives himself. Fit is everything. A suit that fits properly, a shirt that sits on the shoulders correctly, trousers that break at the right length. These are not minor details. These are the markers of a man who has taken the time to understand proportion, who refuses to let excess fabric or sagging clothing make him look sloppy, imprecise, or weak. A man who wears a suit that looks like it was borrowed from someone else appears uncertain, unfinished, unworthy of respect. But a man who wears a suit that fits, as though it was made for him, even if it was not, commands attention before he even speaks. There is power in simplicity. A man who has earned his place does not need loud patterns, excessive logos, or trends that will fade within a season. He understands that restraint is a virtue, that a well-chosen navy or charcoal suit will outlast any temporary fashion statement, that a crisp white or light blue dress shirt signals competence without unnecessary embellishment. He does not need to dress like he is shouting for attention because his presence already speaks for itself. Shoes reveal a man's attention to detail. A pair of well-polished leather shoes chosen with care speaks of refinement, discipline, and an understanding that even the smallest elements of appearance contribute to the whole. Worn-out sneakers, scuffed dress shoes, or unkempt footwear suggest negligence. A man who takes the time to maintain his shoes is a man who understands that respect begins at the ground level, that even what people notice last matters just as much as what they see first. A belt is not just a tool for keeping trousers in place, it is a sign of precision. A belt should match the shoes, should be of quality leather, should be worn with the understanding that it completes the structure of an outfit. A man who has earned his place does not make lazy choices when it comes to accessories because he understands that inattention to the small things reflects a broader failure to maintain standards. Casual clothing does not mean careless clothing. A man who has earned his place does not abandon structure when he is not in a suit. A well-fitted polo, a crisp button-down with rolled-up sleeves, dark, well-maintained denim. These are choices that communicate ease without sloppiness. A man who respects himself does not walk around in stretched out t-shirts, oversized shorts, or flip-flops unless he is at the beach, because he understands that dressing well is not just for special occasions but a daily practice. A man's wardrobe should be built on reliability, cheap fabrics, poorly made garments, disposable fashion. These are things that a man who values himself avoids. He chooses quality over quantity, understanding that a few well-made, properly fitted garments will serve him better than a closet full of cheap, ill-fitting pieces that fall apart after a few wears. He invests in clothing the way he invests in his character, with patience, precision, and a refusal to accept mediocrity. Color and pattern should be handled with intention. A man who has earned his place does not dress in a way that seeks to impress with excess. He understands the timeless strength of neutral tones, the power of monochromatic dressing, the impact of subtle details over loud distractions. He may wear a pattern, but it will be restrained. A fine herringbone, a muted Glen plaid, a sharp pinstripe. He does not chase trends because he does not need to. His confidence is not dependent on fleeting styles. The importance of layering is not lost on a man who understands presence. A well-tailored blazer, a structured overcoat, a fine wool sweater worn under a jacket. These choices add depth to a man's outfit, creating a sense of purpose in his appearance. A man who layers well does not look thrown together. He looks deliberate, as though every piece was chosen for a reason, as though he woke up knowing exactly who he is and how he intends to carry himself through the world. The right watch is a statement of time itself. A man who has earned his place understands that a watch is not just a tool for telling time, but a symbol of order, of the mastery of structure in one's life. A classic timepiece, chosen with care, worn consistently, signals reliability, an awareness of detail, a refusal to exist in chaos. It is not about price, it is about selection, about ensuring that what is worn with intent, not as an afterthought. Grooming and dressing cannot be separated. A well-dressed man with poor grooming habits creates contradiction, just as a well-groomed man in careless clothing undermines his own discipline. A man who has earned his place ensures that every aspect of his presentation is aligned, that his clothing matches the way he carries himself, that his outer appearance is an accurate representation of his internal discipline and self-respect. Posture enhances every choice in clothing. A man in the finest tailored suit who slouches, who does not walk with presence, who does not carry himself with the weight of someone who has mastered himself, ruins the effect of his attire. Strength and clothing must work together, reinforcing each other, ensuring that the message being sent is one of purpose, of self-command, of a refusal to let decay take root in any area of life. Maintenance is non-negotiable. A man who has earned his place does not allow his clothing to fall into disrepair. He ensures his shirts are pressed, his suits are cleaned and stored properly, his shoes are polished, his sweaters are kept free of pilling. He does not treat his wardrobe as disposable because he understands that discipline is required in every aspect of a man's life, including how he cares for the things he owns. Dressing like a man who has earned his place is not about impressing others. It is about presenting oneself in a manner that reflects strength, self-respect, and discipline. It is about ensuring that the world does not mistake neglect for humility, that the appearance of a man reinforces his competence, that there is no gap between the internal foundation and the external presentation, that every choice made in clothing, eye,